Mary had a little lamb.
We believe that all men are created
equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
The judge has ruled that the district attorney, Fani Willis, can continue on this case against former President Trump and over a dozen other defendants. But he does address this issue of an appearance of a conflict, because the big question here is whether there was an actual conflict. The defendants were alleging that Fani Willis, not only that she had this romantic relationship with the lead prosecutor on the Trump case, but that she also benefited financially. And he had to decide, the judge had to sort of do this analysis. Is it enough that this just looks bad, that there's an appearance of a conflict, or did they need to prove, did the defendants, Trump and his co-defendants, need to prove that there was an actual conflict? Well, now, again, I say that DA Fani Willis can stay on this case, but it also appears that the judge is saying that this appearance issue needs to be addressed before this can go forward. So this appears to be a pretty nuanced ruling, but the headline is that the district attorney at her office can stay on this case. But we continue to read to learn more about exactly what the judge is saying about how you need to address the appearance of impropriety.
Okay, so no, that's not correct, Paula. The only question the judge had to decide was whether or not there was an actual conflict of interest. We went over this during the must-see TV that you should never have seen 3 days. Do you remember that? There was only one question that the judge had to answer, and that was there an actual conflict? And an actual conflict in the state of Georgia requires, either she slept with the defense attorney as the prosecutor, she slept with a witness, money actually changed hands for the outcome to be guaranteed. You know what I'm saying? Like an actual, that's the only question that Judge McAfee had to answer. And the answer was no. No, there was no actual. And the reason there was no actual is because he said he couldn't rely on anybody's testimony as far as, remember Terrence Bradley over there who, was asked to leave Mr. Wade's firm because he was accused by an employee of sexual impropriety of some sort. I don't know if it was, overt aggression, covert aggression. I don't know, was he begging? I don't know. All I know is he was asked to leave. And when he testified, he even every piece of evidence that he had on him disproved that he had any knowledge at all of when Nathan Wade and Fani Willis had a relationship. He had no idea when it happened. And the more he talked, the less he knew. And then finally, at the end, he said, I have no knowledge of their relationship. I have no knowledge. So, that fell flat. And then Robin Yeardy, anybody remember Robin? Robin was one of the first witnesses, right? Her and Fani don't speak to each other anymore. But she actually tried to raise some doubts about whether or not Fani Willis and Nathan Wade were exchanging benefits of some financial sort. Yes, they were exchanging benefits of some other sort, but whether they were exchanging benefits of a financial sort, she had no details. She had actually no context for what she was saying. That is what the judge found with regard to Robin Yeardy. So there was nothing there. There was nothing there. So now, of course, breathlessly, everybody's going to have to report, well, there was an appearance. Yes, but that is not illegal. Again, can we just review? She has, or had, I don't know what she has now. She had a life. And her life included working with this person. Now, Nathan Wade obviously has been on this case since the very beginning. You remember these weird rules in Georgia? It was like, I found it so unbelievably, I won't say defeating, but it was so depressing to learn that you had to have a special grand jury first in Georgia, and the special didn't have the authority to indict. Do you remember that? We had to go through all that just to see if the DA could move forward to the next official grand jury. Remember all that time got wasted on the special grand jury? Well, Mr. Wade was in charge of the special grand jury and shepherded the case through that special grand jury. And so he's been on this thing since the very beginning. He's probably spent the last 3.5 years of his life working on this case. And now he has to go. He has to go because there were one of two options presented to her today. Either her and her entire office can just go buzz off and quit the case, or she could let him go. What do you choose? What do you choose? Right. So that's not a difficult decision. However, I have to say, the judge actually had opinions that weren't legal. He had opinions that were personal. He had opinions about what she said at her own church. He had opinions about whether or not everybody was completely honest under oath. Not that he's charging anybody with anything illegal. Not that he's saying anybody committed perjury. Not that he's saying that he wasn't honest or she wasn't. He just says there's an odor. There's an odor of mendacity, an odor. What? And he said he's not required. He's not required to, I'll use his words. He said, however, an odor of mendacity remains. The court is not under an obligation to ferret out every instance of potential dishonesty from each witness or defendant ever presented in open court. It's not my job. He said such an expectation would mean an end to the efficient disposition of criminal and civil proceedings. Are you freaking kidding me? You know, listen, the idea that judges can fool themselves into believing that there is somehow a efficient disposition of civil and or criminal proceedings, especially with regard to anything Donald Trump's lawyers or Donald Trump is involved in, there is nothing that's happening in any of these Donald Trump cases that are efficient dispositions of justice. In fact, I think what we've seen through this whole sordid, disgusting task of trying to bring a fraud, a criminal, a guy who tried to sick violence and did actually get violence to happen against his own country, the efficient disposition of any of these cases is not happening. Because when you have money, you can play the system against itself. You can delay and delay and delay. And if you don't have money, you can't play this game. You're not entitled to the same kinds of delays. You're not, allowed to ask for the same inquiries into the district attorney or the prosecutor or anybody that's charging you. In fact, you probably will never ever see the inside of a courtroom if you don't have money, because you will be presented with a menu of really ugly options for your own case's disposition. And so likely you will take a plea deal, even if you didn't do it. Even if you didn't. And this is how we have so many people in jail who didn't do it. This is why we need an innocence project. This is why people on death row after 40, 50 years, sometimes 30 years, sometimes 20 years, are suddenly found to not have done anything wrong, let alone the crimes that they were, sentenced to 20 years for, 30 years for, 40 years for. It's all about money. It's all about cash. And if you have some, you could actually delay the disposition of civil and criminal proceedings. And a judge will actually weigh in on your delay efforts and say, well, maybe you proved, maybe you didn't, that she was dishonest. Maybe not. But there's an odor, okay? An odor. What is the odor? Oh, a female district attorney was working very closely with a colleague, both as single individuals. He was going through a divorce. She wasn't married. And they ended up liking each other enough to actually date, vacation, and admire each other in a physical manner. Ooh, that sounds terrible. Terrible. Oh, God.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
You've been intrusive into people's personal lives. You're confused. You think I'm on trial. These people are on trial for trying to steal an election in 2020. I'm not on trial, no matter how hard you try to put me on trial.
They didn't like that. Yeah, the judge did not like that. He thought that was unprofessional. Are you kidding me? The fact that she didn't get up and like walk across and punch them, to me is, a very restrained, response to the questions they were asking her about her deeply, deeply personal life and accusing her and him of conspiring to make this case go on longer and longer so that they can enrich themselves. When we found out in the midst of the testimony that Nathan Wade's hours, his billable hours, were capped, meaning there was no chance to make it go on longer to make more money because the number of hours were capped that the state would pay. For God's sake, man, it should have ended right there, but it didn't. It kept on going. I mean, it's so ridiculous. And who's prolonging these cases? Who? Is it the Donald Trump camp that keeps prolonging this agony? Or is it the prosecutors that are dragging their feet? Right. Donald Trump keeps asking for delay after delay, and they give it to him. They keep on giving it to him. It's almost like their Stockholm syndrome victims. It's almost like we're possessed by this system and we're screaming for help because you can see if you have money, you can game this system in such a manner that you could actually run for president, get some sort of immunity bubble around you and dismiss all the charges, all 88 of them, all of them. The fact that America is considering somebody who is being charged with 88 felonies, it was 91, but, 4 of them weren't. The same judge yesterday said 4 of the charges, or 6 of them, I don't know why I said 4, 6. 6 of the charges lacked specificity. 6 of the charges, which had nothing to do with the RICO charges, okay? But saying that, Rudy Giuliani solicited the breaking of oaths by the state legislatures that he lied to lacks specificity in this judge's mind, meaning he can't figure out what federal law is broken or state law is broken when you break your oath to the state constitution as a legislator. Really, this is difficult for them. This is if this is true in any way, shape, or form, then our system is completely busted. It's so broken. I mean, obviously, we understand that there are many justice systems. There's one for the president, which says no justice for any president. You could do whatever the hell you want. I mean, that was frightening enough to find that out. And we did find that out, and it hasn't been repaired. I don't see it being repaired. I don't see any, pulling back of the OLC, the Office of Legal Counsel's opinion. It's not part of the Constitution. It's not part of, a statutory law. It's just an opinion from an office inside of the Department of Justice that counsels about whether or not a president is above the law. And their conclusion has been and still is, yes. Something is so wrong with that, and nobody wants to fix it, okay? So there's that. And Donald Trump keeps, running for president, because he's got, $500 million worth of legal awards that he has to pay. And so he's literally using the courtroom as his campaign to raise money to pay the lawyers and to pay the awards that he keeps losing in court from his donors. He wants you guys to pay Stormy Daniels. He wants you guys to pay E. Jean Carroll. He wants you guys to pay because he's so stupid that he can't stop doing the thing that's costing him millions of dollars to do. And that's call E. Jean Carroll names. He just can't stop doing it. And he wants you to pay for his stupidity. And you're doing it. Some of you are doing it. And, so far, $50 million has been spent on lawyers, but he owes $500 million. The Chubb Group, we found out the guy who's the CEO of the Chubb Group used to be part of the Trump administration. Trump picked him to be part of the trade advisors. Peter Navarro, who has to report to the who's gal, I think on the 19th. They're going to let him stay out for what? St. Patrick's Day? I don't know. He's not even Irish. But, he'll still be in, in that Palm Beach apartment, which I'm very familiar with. Until then. And then he has to go to jail. I don't know what his girlfriend's going to do for fun. Because she's very busy she's, I'm going to say, he's like in his 70s, okay? It's a good-looking man in his 70s. But she's probably around, I don't want to insult her too badly, because I think she wants to be perceived as being in her 40s. She's definitely in her late 50s, early 60s. She's like my age. And she's still wearing a red, white, and blue bathing suit, okay? Snap out of it, honey. Grow the F up. But what is she going to do without him around? I don't even know if he gave her a key. I don't know. Could be like the Sex and the City episode, right? Well, that was the movie where, the girl latched onto a rich guy, but they weren't married. And then all of a sudden he changed the locks and she had no place to live. Smart girl. Fell in love. Anyway, so there's that. But for some strange reason, this judge decided that she has to make a choice. She has to choose between her lead prosecutor, the special prosecutor. It's called a SADA, Special Assistant District Attorney. She has to choose between him, who has been with this case from the very beginning, or herself. She has to choose herself and sacrifice herself at the altar of, I didn't do anything wrong or illegal, because that's what the judge found. He found that nothing that would disqualify her or nothing that would dismiss this case or cause a dismissal of this case, meaning she slept with the defense attorney as the prosecutor, or a witness in the case or a jury member or any of those, weird-ass things. None of that happened. And so she can stay, but they can't both stay.
What are some of the things that would have required her disqualification?
Sure. For instance, if she were having a relationship with a witness in the case, if she were having a relationship with the defense counsel on a case, those are things that would actually deal with the evidence. And the judge goes out of his way to say there's nothing about it, even if there were some financial gain to her.
But there wasn't.
The idea that she's prolonging this case, and the judge goes out of his way to say prolonging, the state has been trying to get to trial. So he goes out of his way to say the defendants are not prejudiced in just one iota about this.
Right. So there was nothing prejudicial to Donald Trump's defense. His defense. The man is on tape, okay? He's tape recorded, begging to find him ballots that he did not earn, that the voters did not give him. This is that case. And then you've got the whole Coffee County intrusion. That's on videotape. My God, why is this going on all these years later?
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
But I think the key here is how to go forward, because clearly Wade is off. But I think that this is such a huge body blow, almost a fatal blow to Fani Willis. I think the way forward is she has to voluntarily recuse herself.
What?
I don't know that she has it in her, but I think she has to say, I'm going to appoint a chief assistant who's going to oversee this case.
Oh, no.
She clearly has no credibility with this judge, and these issues are going to be taken up. The judge invites these issues to be taken up by all sorts of other Georgia regulators, including the Georgia Assembly, the Fulton County Board of Commissioners, the State Ethics Commission. I mean, he lists that. So I think the best thing, if your first interest is the sanctity of this case, which I agree with you, Joe, this is the most important case in Georgia, and of the four Trump cases, this may be the most important because it's one that will last regardless of whether Donald Trump wins the presidency or not. If your first interest is this case, I think she needs to remove herself voluntarily and just say someone else is going to oversee this case in Georgia, so that whatever happens to her in terms of ethics, it doesn't taint this case.
Taint. He said taint. Andrew Weissman is so adorable and brilliant. He is. He's adorable and brilliant. But he's practicing white shoe law firm law, and they're practicing mafia law. So let them look at her. Let the legislature call her out. She'll go. She'll answer any questions she's legally able to. But as the prosecutor, she can also demur and say, I can't answer your question. This is, a live case, right? The ethics board, all this, every single one of these it just doesn't. I don't know what the hell. I mean, and he does list all these things that could now occur, could now happen to her, could now be looked at about her. This is bizarro world. This is so strange and ugly, but it really is in here. And it's because they're practicing letter of the law, white shoe law firm law. And Donald Trump over there with his mafia lawyers are, accusing everyone of anything just in order to get an issue heard, hearings held, decisions waited on. Then the decisions come out. If they like it, great. If they don't, appeal it. It's all delay. And it's all up. It's not an available stance. It's not an available tactic. It's not an available idea to anybody unless you have half of America paying your legal bills.
I feel like if there's a chance to get this wrapped up before the election, I don't want her to step down. But if this already got delayed too long and it might go past already, I don't know if that's not a terrible idea.
What do you mean?
Her handing it off to a chief assistant.
So the delay has already occurred. It's been 3 months. This was brought up in January. It's now March. So there's been a 3-month delay. This trial is supposed to go on August 25th. That's the tentative date that's been, I can't even say it's been set. It hasn't been set. It's been suggested. I mean, this is such a horror show. The whole thing about trying to hold somebody that's very, very rich, that was very, very powerful at one point in his life, so powerful that he was the most powerful person on the planet. On the freaking planet. Blew it. Had one crisis to deal with and totally blew it. 1 million people died. Shelves were empty. Supply chains were broken. 22 million jobs were lost. Kids couldn't go to school. Whatever. Had one crisis to deal with and totally flubbed it. Totally, and lied about it the whole time. Lied about it. It was a hoax. It wasn't real. Then said, we were attacked. It was China. Same thing with the documents. Okay, the documents case. I don't have any documents. You're making this up. Oh, I do have documents? You planted them. Then, they're mine. I'm president. I took them when I was president of the United States. Of course I took them. Of course I did. I'm entitled to take them. And I declassified them while I was president. Can't do it after I'm president, even though I'm arguing that I can. Complete immunity once you've been president. Listen, to save ourselves from a liar like this. But here's the thing. That case in Georgia is the state case. Remember that. He can't get rid of it. So, the other case is the documents case, federal case. Can't get rid of it. Can actually call the DOJ and, whoever his attorney general is and tell his attorney general to drop the charges. That's how simple a thing that is to spare himself. That's how simple this all can get. Is he makes a phone call and says, I want it dropped. I'm the president again. I mean, this is so Vlad. It's unbelievable. So, Putin's having a sham election today, right? And so he's got his 3-pronged tactic, right? What does Putin do? First of all, he runs all the media, which is what Trump dreams of. Fake news, right? I want to shut this down. I want to shut that down. I don't like this. I don't like that. Then he sees an opportunity in making some money with, his former Treasury Secretary, putting a consortium together to buy TikTok. Oh, now all of a sudden he's all about TikTok. TikTok's great. I love TikTok. It's just so sick. It's such a twisted way to govern. This is how Vlad does it, though. Same thing. So Vlad has one TV channel. You have one TV channel in Russia, Russia 1. You have one channel, state-run media. That's it. And all it does is praise Putin and compare him to bears. Constantly. He's the bear, everybody. Okay, so you got state-run media. Then all of a sudden, you control the entire election apparatus. He controls everything. This is the first time in Russia that they have voted on electronic voting machines. And, the people, they have no problem with it. And Vlad has no problem with it because Vlad controls the voting machines. He controls the algorithm. He controls everything. And the choices that pop up are just him. Why? Because anybody who, presents any sort of a real challenge to him, he kills. They're dead. Navalny died mysteriously in some, Arctic prison, okay, in some gulag in north of Siberia. Didn't even know there was a north of Siberia. But yeah, mysteriously died. Okay, so when Trump looks at Putin, this is what he covets. This is what he is jealous of. This is what he wants for himself. We won't even recognize this country. So you're gonna have a guy who controls all the means of voting. You're gonna have a guy who controls all the media, right? Because he's gonna have people like me shut down or stations like Free Speech shut down, and then the harder ones, the big ones that have money to, defend themselves, like the NBCs of the world, right? Or the CNNs of the world. Good luck with that, but you're going to spend, probably $1 billion trying to keep yourself alive. We'll go first, but you'll go. I mean, what kind of a world is... And then, if you still have the courage to run, if you still have the temerity to run, if you still have the desire to restore sanity and democracy back to the United States, because once you lose it, it's a really tough haul to get it back. But if you do, he'll just have you killed. He'll just have you killed. Or, I don't know, exiled or removed. I mean, Zuckerberg has got to go. This is the target. This is the first one. I can see that one happening. I can see it. So guess what? It's up to us.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
All right, tell me what you think. Should she stay? Should she go? Is the appearance enough to create an odor? Smells like musky. I mean, this is so disgusting what they're doing to this person. I've just wow. All right, Pat in Chicago.
Hi there, Randi. You have such a wonderful show. Well, when I saw this all unfolding, and then with his phrasing today, with McAfee's phrasing, it brought me back to the 50s, and I thought to myself, what could that be? And, of course, that was Tennessee Williams, when he used the word mendacity in Cat on Hot Tin Roof. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe that's coincidental. Maybe that's just the way white guys talk in Georgia. I don't know. But it's something where I don't think she wants to go back to the 50s, and she needs to push forward. And it may be painful because of how they've treated her, but she needs to get the women of that state and around the country behind her.
Yeah,
because
I mean,
what they did.
The idea that this is a very, very important case, and it should have absolutely no, let's say, taint to it, and that this guy just gave so much ammunition to the Trump, mob lawyers to put out in the atmosphere. I mean, listen, I signed up for all the Trump fundraising crap. I almost said it. I almost said that word. But so my phone blew up yesterday because as soon as this happened, he goes, the witch hunt by Fani Willis, the judge just said it can continue. Please donate here. You know what I mean? Right. So he's going to fundraise up because the whole campaign is him in court, right? That's the whole campaign. And it's all to get money. That's all he's doing. And hopefully at the end, give himself immunity. But the idea that they use the word mendacity, listen, it was either that or they would have to use perjury, and he didn't want to use perjury because perjury has a legal connotation to it, right? And she didn't perjure herself, neither did he, and so there was no perjury that could be found. And in fact, the judge divorced himself from even having the obligation to deduce whether or not somebody was truthful. He said, "It's not my job, not my job." That's why I read that part, right? But he wanted to say there was an odor of lying. There was an odor of not telling the complete and whole truth. I mean, excuse me, this is a personal relationship she had that is over, that doesn't lead to any conclusion except that they had a personal relationship that's over.
Yeah.
Why is that anybody's damn business? I don't even get it. I never understood the whole premise of it. And this was brought to delay, period. End of story. This wasn't brought by Trump. This was brought by one of the co-defendants, his lawyer, because his lawyer is on billable hours. I mean, they're the ones that are making the money.
So maybe she needs to postpone it. Is that what you're saying? Or
No,
I mean, she can't drop it at this
no,
point.
no. I'm saying what you're saying. I'm saying just ignore it all and just, make your case. The case is it's so the case is on tape. The case is audio tape, videotape. The case is the case. It is something everybody heard. There's no, right. There's no, oh, hey, I have to rely on the prosecutor's professionalism in order to believe what she's, suggesting. No, I'm sorry. This case has audio evidence. It has video evidence. That phone call went on for an hour.
It has a special grand jury as well as a grand jury, and that means that the citizens of Georgia vouched for the evidence that was presented before them. And it just seems to me that this is as much a slap in their face as it is in the district attorneys.
Nice.
Because at the end of the day, yeah.
Yeah, I like
they
it.
couldn't impeach the evidence, so they had to go this other maligning route. That's why
it.
The word of mendacity was interesting, and I was so glad you brought it up because, but it takes us back way back, and that's where they want to go.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I wouldn't characterize the whole argument based on, the old word mendacity or, because it's used a lot in law because other than, if you call somebody a liar in law, are you alleging perjury? Did they lie under oath? What did they lie about? You know what I mean? So you can say they were mendacious. You can say they were disingenuous. You can say it lacked context. There's lots of ways to call somebody a liar in a court that isn't actionable, let's say, right? That's not really legal. So that's why he used that word. But I love what you just said. I mean, as far as, the idea that the people of Fulton County have already sat through 2 grand juries and they vouched for the quality of the evidence. And the evidence is something you heard. It's something I heard. It's something every American heard. It's something every Georgian heard. It included the governor of Georgia. It included the Secretary of State of Georgia. It included election representatives from Georgia. And it was on tape. So, yeah.
This just makes us work harder on behalf of Biden and the Democrats in the Senate and in the House because we just have to win it all.
First of all, the idea that the law has got to be changed. The law has to say that the president of the United States is not above the law and that criminal activities undertaken by a president that are, demonstrably illegal, like shooting someone on Fifth Avenue, is prosecutable while the president is president. You don't need to just rely on impeachment and removal because that's political. That's not criminal, right? So we have something to do here that we need to do ahead of an election, and we have Mike Johnson as the Speaker of the House. We're so screwed. We're so screwed. But thank you for your points. Well taken and well made. Johnny in Texas.
Yeah, I've got 2 questions for that Judge McAfee. Question number 1, Judge. Did no one bring up to you the point that those Trump attorneys were padding their payrolls, their time sheet, by dragging out on behalf of Donald Trump to get a delay? That they weren't taking advantage of the situation of Donald Trump? They're accusing
Right.
Willis.
That's what I'm saying. Like
the
reason why for most ordinary people, for most citizens of these United States, that this kind of delay tactic isn't, something you could deploy, isn't a tactic you could use, it's not available to you, is because the lawyers need to get paid. And if you're going to pursue a delay strategy, they want to make sure that they've got a retainer that's like $1 million or $2 million, whatever, because it's going to take a really, really long time, and they're going to have to remain working on your case if that's the tactic you're using. And that's why it's not an available tactic to you or to me.
Here's my second question for Judge McAfee.
Okay.
McAfee, they say brevity is equal to wit, right? Or however that goes. How come it took you 23 pages to say that she can only stay on the case if Wade resigns? How come it takes you 23 pages? I know why. Because you are a media hog, Republican judge.
I don't know.
Trump-appointed judge. You make fun of the justice system. You anger everybody. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. I don't know about that. But the first point is true. It's true enough. The only reason why most people cannot deploy delay as a tactic to keep on kicking the can down the road, kicking the can down the road, until, in this case, until you are elevated into an immunity bubble, right? That is impenetrable. Impenetrable, because we have a Congress that refuses to make it penetrable. And that's how simple it would be. Okay? But they refuse to do it. So this is the goal of the delay, is to get him into the office where he's in this bubble of immunity, right? We can't do that. Who has the money to pay lawyers? You tell a lawyer, here's the strategy I want, because they're going to lay out your options. They're going to tell you exactly what your options are. You can plead and take a lesser amount of time, or you can plead and enter into a settlement, which is something Donald Trump has done traditionally, right? The Trump University case settled for $25 million, right? He always settles, always. But now he won't, because he's got donors, he's got people giving $35, $50, $100, $1,000, right? He's got people donating to him to pay his legal bills. $50 million. 50. Do you understand what kind of a number that is for legal bills? Right? And now we find out the guy is basically broke. He needs a bond put up with collateral, like his properties as collateral, in order to gain the privilege of appealing something he keeps doing. He's appealing the defamation, not just the $5 million, but the 5 million and then 83 million on top of it, because he wouldn't stop. And he just defamed her again last weekend at one of his stupid rallies. But the Chubb Group is going to actually take collateral and guarantee that he can pay, which they would pay. He wouldn't even pay, which they would pay if he loses on appeal, right? And it becomes payable. It's just so, it's awful.
Mary had a little man. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
President Putin asking Russia for 6 more years. He's already been its leader for 24, changing the constitution so he could run again. NBC News was at this central Moscow polling station when it opened. 90-year-old Nina Kiselova lived through Stalin. Today, she voted for Putin. I really trust him, she told us. I trust only him. We live well, says Svetlana Kulikova. That's why I voted for Putin. International election monitors will come from 106 countries, Russia says, including China. But independent Western observers are not welcome. For the first time in a Russian presidential election, there's electronic voting.
Did you vote electronically?
Да.
Do you trust that?
Yes, of course, she says. President Putin undoubtedly still popular here, but young Russians are less enthusiastic. 22-year-old Yulia, who didn't want to give us her last name, told us she won't vote, laughing, it's clear who's gonna win. This is the first national election since Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine. People in the Ukrainian territories occupied by Russia are voting under martial law.
Martial law.
A Russian bear is the star of a Putin election video on state media. Don't put him in chains, it says. The Kremlin ensuring Putin is effectively unopposed. All the other candidates support Russia's so-called special military operation, Even the wives of Russian servicemen laying flowers for their loved ones to come home have been threatened with arrest in recent weeks.
Nice.
While Putin's strongest opponent, Alexei Navalny, died in prison and was buried last month. This week, his wife, Yulia, called on the West not to recognize the election, while one of Navalny's top aides in Lithuania says he was beaten with a hammer this week.
What?
In a video with a broken arm, he vowed, "We will not surrender."
I mean, this is what Donald Trump hopes for himself. This is what he wants for himself. This is what he's coveting. This is what he's jealous of. This is what he supports. What Putin is doing is, it's like awesome to him. He thinks it's like the greatest thing ever. And, you know, the people in this country that still support Donald Trump with 88 felonies against him, with 88 charges in 4 different, jurisdictions, everything from, stealing war plans and showing them to unauthorized people, all the way to, fake electors and schemes to overthrow and violence on January 6th. These are the cases that are pending that Donald Trump is fundraising off of so that the lawyers can make even more than $50 million. Yeah. Delaying his come to justice moment. You wait for come to Jesus. I want come to justice. I want justice. Also that he can have this. Also, he could have this, so he could change the Constitution, stay in power, so he could run the elections the way he wants to run the elections, so that you can vote when you're under martial law in occupied territories in other countries. I just, it's so insane. It's so insane. And, to have a war that nobody's allowed to call a war, and then to kill his opponents if they still have the courage of their convictions. Just kill them. Oh, and by the way, that guy there that was beaten with a hammer in Lithuania, that was sent as a message: we can find you wherever you go. Anywhere you go. You stand up against Vlad. I've been the dictator for 24 years, and I'm going to get another 6. And I will be there until the day you die.
I thought that young Russian woman's response to a question about the election by giggling was the most appropriate response, because Russian election, it's laughable. It's laughable, and that's the only reaction you can have. Just laugh at it.
Everybody knows it. I mean, this is the thing. You know what's really crazy is only 1 in 5 Russians know that Navalny is dead. Do you know that? You know why? State-run media, everybody. State-run media. This is what happens when you control the whole 9 yards, okay? This is what happens. This is what it looks like. This is what it smells like. This is the odor of mendacity that everybody in the court was groping for against the people who are trying to get justice done for their state. For their state, because their state was robbed by lies. Their state was, he was on the phone. The evidence that Fani Willis has, it's recorded evidence. It's the defendant in his own voice. There is nothing better than that outside of a confession. But even if, Trump ever confessed, they would say his lawyers would get paid to say he was under duress, right? So the best you're ever going to get is that freaking phone call. Those people in Coffee County, the fake electors, the guilty pleas by Sidney Powell and Cheesebro, the architects of the fake electors plot. Okay, this is as good as it gets, this case, and that's why they have to go after her. And she's got a set on her. She does. She's got some nads, man. This girl is fearless. And, she will walk right. I mean, you think Donald Trump walks right up to the line but doesn't cross it. I think Donald Trump walks over the line and crosses it and, wants the military to, be by his side when he does it. I mean, he was going to shoot people in Lafayette Square. Do you know that? He was going to shoot American citizens for protesting him in Lafayette Square. He got General Milley to walk with him to walk with him. They were throwing, stank bombs and flashbangs, and they had the little green men. You didn't even know who these people were. What part of the government were they from? Were they Capitol Police? Were they Secret Service? Were they from out of state? Were they state trooper? I mean, who are these little green men? This is what Vlad deploys, little green men. That's where the little green men name comes from. It's unknown, unmarked law enforcement that enforces what the dictator says the law is. Turned out in our case, they were prison guards, extraction teams that Donald Trump and remember how scary they looked standing on the steps of in Washington, D.C.? Do you remember that? That was a taste of what he wants for us. And she's trying to hold him accountable for that. And so we must attack her. It's very sick. But this is what it looks like in the end. It looks like a guy in Lithuania getting beaten with a hammer from a guy who is running for, his last, to make a nice even 30 years. Because, if Vladimir Putin was not in power, Vladimir Putin would also either end up dead or he would, be imprisoned for stealing. He steals from the Russian people, just like Donald Trump steals from his donors, just like Bannon stole from his audience. The We Build the Wall thing, $1 million he took for himself. It's just, Catherine in Baltimore.
Hi, Randy.
Hi.
Let me shut you off speaker. I'm sorry. I just wanted to let you know, one of the previous callers had said something about this Scott McAfee. He was appointed by Governor Kemp in 2022, and he's up for election, and he has two opponents. And so can you imagine if he loses the election in November and she's in the middle of her case, what that will do if the judge suddenly loses his? Would they have to start the trial all over again?
I don't know.
I don't know. He's just so Republican. He was the assistant DA in Fulton County. So I don't know. Maybe he's jealous of her. She's the better. I don't know.
All things Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
All right, 20 after Brother David in Kansas.
Oh, sister.
Hello.
It is a day and a half. Quote, do not obey in advance. Most of the power of authoritarianism is freely given. In times like these, individuals think ahead about what a more repressive government will want and then offer themselves without being asked. A citizen who adapts in this way is teaching power what it can do. That is certainly what Vlad is counting on, hence the young lady on that, the giggle. And it's absolutely what it is counting on. I take heart in the fact that Stormy Daniels' case is coming up March 25th. So there's going to be more.
No, that's been delayed too.
Has it been delayed too? Well, I've been sick. So I haven't been up with the news state. We'll see. So then I take that heart back. It finally, here in America anyway, it's got to be us at the polls.
Here's the message, okay?
Tell me.
If people in this country really think that there's going to be some sort of a verdict that's going to save you from a Donald Trump.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah,
it's not going to happen that way, okay? It really isn't. And
Right.
the only chance we have to actually see him meet the bar of justice is to not allow him to be the president. That's it. That's the only. And it's like What point do people have to get to? Like, what violation did they have to see with their own eyes? What kind of a thing, would make them say, I can't vote for this man? Would it be January 6th? Would it be him, like lying all the time about every damn thing? Would it be the flip-flop on, COVID? Would it be the advice that, you should, drink bleach or shoot yourself up with disinfectant or put lightsaber? What thing would it be for you if you were a Trump supporter that makes you say, I just can't do it again?
And I can't begin to even comprehend being a Trump supporter. I said his name. I'm going to have to bleach my tongue.
Yeah.
But that therein is the conundrum.
So Nathan Wade quit. He just quit.
Well, that's, I guess that's good. That whole thing is even where it's at is appalling just in and of itself.
I know. It's because her case is so persuasive, let's say, okay? Her case is really self-executing, in that constitutional, terms that the Supreme Court likes to use. Is this amendment self-executing? Well, this case is like self-executing. I don't even think you need a district attorney except to introduce the evidence. You know what I mean? And we all see what Trump's attorneys do when they have to introduce evidence. They don't know how. He loses. He's like, that's another thing. Like, is it enough that he's a loser for Trump supporters to not support him this time? I mean, beyond the fact that he lies and beyond the fact that he, tried to attack his own country in an insurrection, the lying about the election to this minute, and all that. But what about the fact that he's just such a loser?
I would have thought that would have long since
been
the reason.
They're bullies. They can't stand losing. I mean, losing makes them violent. But he's such a loser. He loses everything. Everything he touches dies, as Rick Wilson pointed out. Everything he does, everything he touches, it dies.
Tyranny of the minority, excuse me, Randy. Still more of us.
Right. But, they gerrymander the hell out of us. So that was one way to suppress us, okay? And then they started, invoking Bible verses, to try and get people to go along, to get along, right? And now, everybody realizes that their ideas are so putrid that they have to actually steal. That's all they got left. They've got nothing that the majority of this country wants. Nothing. They have no policy for health care. They have no policy for prescription drugs. They have no policy on housing. They have no policy on rental assistance. They have no policy on child tax credits. They have no policy on, EBT. They have no policy on Social Security that anybody, is willing to hear or look at, because it's always cut. They have nothing on Medicare. They have, the repeal and replace was the rug was pulled out of repeal and replace, meaning they had no replacement. They were on the eve of repeal. And the reason why McCain voted no is because there was no replacement for Obamacare. There was no replacement for the exchange. There was no replacement for an expansion of Medicaid. There was no replacement for people with pre-existing conditions to get health care coverage at prices they could possibly afford. Everybody's hip to this, okay? And so the people that are still voting for Trump, you have to understand the reason. They know he's a loser. He keeps losing. Maybe they are too. Maybe that's the kinship. But they think that if they empower somebody who has the nads to steal it in the end, okay, who will steal it, and empower himself to be, the chief loser, that he will then get even with the people they hate. And that's it. That's what the whole concept is. I mean, there's nothing deeper going on than that. There's nothing more important to them than that. There's nothing, more elite, egalitarian or fair about that. The people that are still on this ride with him, that are giving him their last, $25, $50, they're doing it only because only because they want somebody to get even with the people that make them feel like losers. And that's it. It's just not that complicated.
But I do love the question of what would it take for.
Well, we don't know.
You know that it's truly unknowable. What would it take for them to detach themselves?
No, I mean he has to lose one more time, and they have to just move on with their lives. That's it's going to be one of those time things. How time heals all wounds, kind of a thing. It's like they'll go through their grieving process. They've already been through it, and they're firmly ensconced in the anger phase. They've never gotten to acceptance. The people that are still hanging on, they haven't made it all the way through the grieving process. After he lost, and they are clinging. They're bitter clingers. Isn't that what Hillary called them? Bitter clingers. Clinging on to their guns, and the hope that there would be some guy who would be in a position to steal one final election and get even with all the people that they hate, that make them feel bad, instead of voting for somebody who can make them feel better, because they'll do better things, they'll have better opportunities, better access. What can I tell you? They are bitter. They're bitter old bitches, and they're bitter old clingers. So to try and, answer that question is such an exercise in futility, as they say, because it seems to me there's nothing. The man tried to overthrow his own country, your country, yours. And I saw people, The Daily Show on Monday, he had I can't show it, but you saw it, I'm sure, where people were saying, maybe we need a dictator. And Jon Stewart said, you want to love him, but stop saying it's patriotism, because it isn't.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
The North Carolina Republican nominee for governor, Mark Robinson, as we've reported, has a long history of anti-Semitic, anti-LGBTQ, sexist comments. Now, just this past Saturday, Robinson told a crowd at a Republican fundraiser in Naples, Florida, that it's time to stand up and fight law enforcement.
What?
Take a listen.
We once again can be the leaders of freedom in this nation. And it starts with us having a conversation in the mirror. Can I do it? Am I willing? When the chips are down, when the FBI is knocking on my door,
what?
Will I cower? Will I comply? Or will I stand up and fight? Folks, it's time to stand up and fight.
Fight what? The FBI? See, this is what I'm telling you. This is exactly what I'm telling you. The messaging that is going on there. That is Mark Robinson from North Carolina. He wants to be the next governor of that state, okay? And his pitch to his loyalists, his pitch to get people to vote one last time for him is, when the FBI comes knocking on my door. Why would the FBI be knocking on his door? Will I stand up and fight them? Fight them. He's talking about armed resistance to an election when Donald Trump loses. This is what they're selling out there. That was stunningly shocking. I watched that and I was like, what did you just say? When I have to have a talk with myself in the mirror, and I have to ask myself, can I do it? Am I willing to do it? When the FBI comes knocking on my door, will I cower or will I stand up and fight? Law enforcement? Are you freaking kidding me? This is the appeal to the miscreants. This is the appeal, is that you will have permission to fight anybody who disagrees with you, whether they're law enforcement, whether they're federal law enforcement, whether they're state troopers, whether they're sheriffs, you can fight back and you will be protected as long as you remain loyal. Except that never plays out that way, ever, never. You become an inconvenient truth for a guy like Donald Trump, you go to. Okay, he just has to clear the deck. He doesn't want to defend you. I mean, he's talking this great game about they're hostages. Meanwhile, when he was president, he had a chance to pardon everybody, right? And he didn't, did he? No. And he won't, because it's too embarrassing. And he doesn't know how it's going to play out in the end and which pawns on the chessboard he needs to play and sacrifice for himself, the king. Okay? This is how low it is. This is how low it gets. This is how disgusting these people are, okay? They have been talking about shooting the IRS. They've been talking about getting even with LGBT people, getting even. They've been talking about anti-Semitism. They've been talking about all this stuff forever. But now they see an opportunity in Donald Trump for somebody to get even with those people. Whoever it is that they hate, whoever it is, just get even with those people for me. But what you don't know, what you don't understand, is you do violence. Like the Crumbleys, okay? The Crumbleys have a kid named Ethan Crumbley. Ethan Crumbley was 15 years old. 15, shot up his school, okay? Killed 4 people and injured a whole bunch more. And, these pro-gun people, these, lunatic, Donald Trump and the Second Amendment, and I've done nothing to, stop gun violence, and I will do nothing to stop gun. Yeah, well, you know what? The Crumbleys, the Crumbleys, they're all going to freaking jail together. All of them. They're all going to jail. You think Donald Trump, if he were president right now, would intervene and keep the Crumbleys out of jail because they bought their mentally suffering son? The son said he was having issues. He was having problems. He tried to talk to his father about it, and his father wouldn't listen to him. So his father instead went out and bought him a gun. His father just got convicted yesterday of involuntary manslaughter. His mother got convicted about 3 weeks ago, maybe 2, for involuntary manslaughter. They haven't been sentenced yet, but they're all going to go to jail together. Together. You think Donald Trump would do anything to help them out? I say no. No. Could have pardoned Kyle Rittenhouse and saved him a whole lot of crying on the stand. You remember that trial that we were all dragged through? But he didn't, did he? No, he didn't. He didn't say, "Hey, Kyle, don't worry about it. I'm gonna, pardon you ahead of the charges." No. So I just want everyone who's rooting for, guys like, to stand up and fight the FBI. You're going to jail if you stand up and fight the FBI. I couldn't believe he said that. I was so sickened by everything about this guy, and then that even made it worse. And then, oh my God, in the same breath, we find out in that same report that, reports Mark Robinson is like telling people to stand up to the FBI. You have to have this, talk with yourself in the mirror, and you have to say, can I do it? Am I willing? And then when the FBI comes knocking at your door, will you cower or will you fight? I mean, literally saying that to people. In the same report, they report that there is a woman who, they thought it was very surprising on the CNN that this woman actually won her primary in North Carolina to be the new school superintendent. The Republican, nominating, event happened, and this woman, her name's Michelle Morrow, she won in a surprise win in North Carolina to be a school superintendent, which means she would be in charge of the entire school system in North Carolina, an $11 million budget, okay? She would be in charge of all the curriculum. She would be in charge of all the teachers. She would be in charge of anything. And yet she homeschools her kids, and she's a QAnon person. She tweets out the most disgusting, vile things. But for those of us who are looking for an answer, like what do people want by supporting these people? They want these people to get even with the people they hate, right? She believes in adrenochrome, and she thinks that people are, killing kids to drink their adrenochrome so that they can stay young forever. She tweets that she wants to see Biden and Obama, she wants to see them executed on live television in front of a firing squad. She doesn't even want them to go to jail. No, because she said she's done paying for all these criminals. She doesn't want to pay another penny for these criminals to A, continue criming, and B, if they were put in prison, she doesn't want to pay for their upkeep. So she would rather have them up against a wall and shot by a firing squad on live television, and then she tweets the "where we go when we go all" thing. She won the primary. Mark Robinson won the Republican primary for the governor's race in North Carolina, same state. You want to know what the good news is? North Carolina is not the result of the primary voters. North Carolina is much more than Republican primary voters.
Fatality. This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
They talk about $600. Come and ask me what I did with my $600. Please, come ask me. You stand in my door. What did you do with that $600? I bought ammo.
Oh my God.
And last week I bought ammo. And the week before that I bought ammo. Right Wing Watch, that's A-M-M-O, ammo. Get that right. Would you like to see some of my ammo revenue, man? I have some nice ammo back here that I bought with my $600.
Okay, this guy holds himself out as being holier than thou. He's, an uber Christian, but all he ever talks about is killing people, standing up to the FBI, shooting the IRS, and please come and ask me what I did with my money. I bought ammo. This is their version of a God-loving, God-fearing, I don't know what it is that you have to do about God anymore in North Carolina. But that is who Mark Robinson is. He's constantly threatening to shoot and kill law enforcement or authority that, collects taxes for, a civilized society to happen. Please ask me. This is who okay, so the point that you need to wrap your brain around is that this is what the Trumpers, the maggots, this is what the Republican primary voter chooses over sanity and respect. This is what they choose over following a law or changing the law because you don't like the law through legitimate democratic means. They want people shot and killed. And so in the primaries, people like this rise to the top. The good news, as I keep on telling you, is this is all up to us, and there are very few of them left who would vote in a general election for a guy that says this swill, for a guy that actually not just encourages, but agitates for violence against law enforcement, violence against, like the IRS, ever comes to your door. They don't come to you. The revenuer doesn't come to your door. They garnish your bank account. They take it right from your paycheck, okay? Good luck getting through on the phone. You don't want to fund customer service there. You want to kill them instead. I mean, come on. So you understand that this is the most juvenile bunch of very severely hampered intellectually losers who are hoping somebody will just get even with the people they hate, whether those people are writing books for children that they will never read, but they heard something bad about and they want those books banned, or it's somebody that's telling you you have permission to kill the IRS, who is never coming to your door. You understand that, right? Please tell me you understand that, even if you're one of his voters. No, they just take it right out of your paycheck. And you know who agrees to do that? Your employer. Terry in Canada.
Hi.
Hey.
Randi, first-time caller.
Oh, hey.
In Canada, I get asked frequently, how come they stay with him? And I said, well, there are 3 reasons. Somebody actually sat down and said, okay, I want to hear it all.
Okay.
I said, well, this is it. I said, first, he said you didn't have to be a decent human being if you disagreed with somebody. The second was he got you to blame everything in your life that's going wrong on whatever group you wanted to attack. The third permission he gave them was to be violent, just like you're talking about today. And when I said that to a guy who was putting in my cable last week, he said to me, "Oh, that makes it a whole lot easier, doesn't it, if you just follow that?" I said, "Yeah, that's number 4. And I told the other person, the problem with all of this is they don't want to give up that power.
But they are power. They have power, and the power they have is the power to vote. That's the power that every citizen enjoys. That's the power that every American should be exercising. That is the most.
You're absolutely right.
That is
but
the most powerful.
That isn't how they want to go about it.
Well, I mean, it's just too bad because that's what democracy, requires. They can also run for office. They can change the law. They could do a million other things, but you can't shoot your way to freedom. Okay, you can't shoot your fellow citizens. You can't shoot law enforcement and come up with freedom on the other side.
That's absolutely true.
Right.
They just haven't figured that out. I mean, some people are never going to change how they. He's saying what they want to hear. That's the problem.
Right, and that's why you have these groups like Bikers for Trump, okay, who, want to be lawless. They want to wear leather when they're 70. They want to be ponytail man, and they want to abuse the women. And, they think that if they elect Donald Trump, all that will happen for them. I got news for you. None of that will happen for you.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy your program, listen to it every day. Thank you very much for taking my call.
Thank you. I mean, it's too many reasons. The real bottom line on all of this is that people want Donald Trump to get even with the people they hate. It is that simple. I'm not saying that every one of them wants permission to be violent, although a good chunk of them do. That's the whole thing with the guns and the whole thing with the ammo and the whole thing with the storage and the preparing for the apocalyptic future. And they think that if they elect a president like that, who has no limits, no red lines, nothing he wouldn't do, that somehow he will hate the same people they hate and it will all be beautiful in the end. It doesn't work like that. Cornell in Louisiana.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. And I was just listening and want to piggyback on something you said, and that's about the people who still want to vote for Donald Trump. They think they're exempt from the things that a dictator would do, And I was looking at the people in Ukraine, and they look like the people in Russia, and the people in Gaza, they look like the people in Israel. They're not exempt from anything because they look like that person,
Yep.
So the things that these people are going to get wrong is they think that they're exempt from the things. And everybody's going to get a chance to experience what Jim Crow is like if they vote him in.
Yeah, you're right. We're all black now.
That's right.
I hear
Thanks so much.
You're
Thanks so much for taking my call. And I listen to your show, and I enjoy you and Tom and the rest of them. And you bring a lot of knowledge to the world. Keep doing it. Thanks.
You too. Thank you for calling me. I appreciate you. This whole idea that somehow they'll be exempt, no. That's what I'm trying to say. But he said it in a very nice way. It's all Jim Crow for everybody now, is really what it is. Because dictators don't really pander to the powerless. They don't serve for the powerless. In fact, the powerless who voted for like Putin today, they will be cannon fodder. If Putin decides that he needs cannon fodder, if he needs more people going in to shoot their brothers in Ukraine, then, the people with the least amount of power in Russia, the least amount of power, their sons will be sent to Ukraine to kill their brothers. Now, a whole lot of people in the Russian military are straight out of the jail. Straight out of the jail. And they're being sent to freeze to death in the middle of the winter on Ukrainian soil, right? You're never exempt from a dictator using you in a manner in which he feels you should be used. And you should only know that Donald Trump has so little respect for people like me. The only people that I think he disrespects more than people like me who are truth tellers are the people that vote for him. Swear to God. He thinks you are such jerks. And he keeps taking your money and you keep giving it. And he just doesn't understand how stupid you are. He doesn't get it, but he thinks you are the dumbest people on the planet. And whenever something happens, what is the first thing Donald Trump does? He texts you. His campaign asks you for more money because he knows that you're a mark. You're an easy mark for him. So there you have it. Rich in Denver.
Oh, Randy, my queen. Yeah, it's just Brett and I were talking and pausing it. It's a cult, pure and simple, and he has killed people in the fact that Kim Jones told him to drink the Kool-Aid, he tells them to drink the ivermectin, and if they told him to drink Kool-Aid, they'd do it. You know.
Yeah.
And you and I have talked about this before, Randy. And it's owning the libs. You know.
Right.
It's that they could lose everything. They could get a terminal disease. They could lose their car. They could lose their job. They could lose their home. Their kids could die, and they still go back and say, the black man is getting something I'm not getting. The transgender is getting something I'm not getting. The gay person is getting something I'm not getting. The Muslim is getting something I'm not getting. The Jew is getting something I'm not getting. It's a cult, pure and simple, and, you know, these people, as you've said, they can't even think their way out of a paper bag. They're in so deep.
I know.
You know?
Yeah, I do. And, you know, listen, like I said, the good news is that this country isn't made up of North Carolina primary voters, okay? It's made up of moms. It's made up of moms and dads and people who work for a living and work very hard. It's people who are trying to, you know, pay their mortgage, people who are trying to have a mortgage, people who are trying to have families, people who rely on IVF to do that, people who are not ready to have families, all people. Not North Carolina primary voters. And that's the silver lining in that story. And yes, it's all about owning the libs. Right, Greg? Too bad.